Well, there was a lot of breaking news this afternoon. First, at approximately 1:15 p.m., the New York Times named the two sources that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes has said showed him the evidence that communications from the Trump transition team had been incidentally collected. Fox News has confirmed the sources independently. They are White House staffers at the National Security Council, lawyer Michael Ellis, and Intel Director Ezra Cohen-Watnick. That led to this flurry of activity at Ranking Member Adam Schiff's presser on Capitol Hill.
If, in fact, the National Security Council staff that discovered these materials reportedly in the ordinary course of business are the same National Security staff that provided them to the chairman to be provided to the president, it raised a profound question why they were not directly provided to the White House by the National Security staff and instead were provided through a circuitous route involving the chairman. If that was designed to hide the origin of the materials, that raises profound questions about just what the White House is doing that need to be answered.
So to unpack what we have, there are 3 investigations going on over 2 separate topics. First topic, whether or not there was any collusion with the Russians by Team Trump during the election, and the second being, was there surveillance of Team Trump by the intel departments, and if so, who unmasked the names of those being surveilled? Also, very important, was that very unmasking even legal? So much to talk about, so let's jump right in. And Dana, we'll start with you. What was the big information that we got today?
Well, I think there's 2, and we're going to get to it a little bit later about the Senate hearing, which I thought was also interesting. In this case, this is another day, yet another story, which actually leads to more questions than answering them. And I go back to the thing, I really think the White House should appoint somebody who is the communications person that is just answering these questions, because if not, they will not be able to talk about anything else. You have a couple of different threads here. I'll just point out 2 of them. So Sean Spicer has not said at the podium who had actually cleared Representative Nunes into the White House. And looked like I know how that goes. Like, you don't even want to ask to find out. And the other thing, the people in the White House should actually try to protect him, because he has to go out there and have to answer all of these questions. The other thing is that Nunes says in one of his interviews that he doesn't think that anybody in the West Wing even knows, we had any idea that what he was doing when he was over there. How could that possibly be? When one of the lawyers, Michael Ellis, who used to work for Nunes on the House Intelligence Committee, was his general counsel, is actually, his title is Special Assistant to the President. And maybe his office is actually in the old executive office building, because there's not enough office space there in the West Wing, but he is part of the West Wing staff. The other thing is that now the committee, now the White House says, well, the Democrats of the committee, now they are welcome to come to the White House to see the same information. They could have saved themselves all of this headache by doing that at the very beginning. I just think that they keep creating more problems for themselves by just trying to win a news cycle than just cooperating with the investigation and letting it run its course.
Greg, and we're still trying to figure out, now, General Flynn, Michael Flynn, was unmasked, right?
Yes.
Now we're trying to figure out, was he surveilled legally, and was he unmasked legally? And maybe finally, we have both committees, Senate and House Intel committees, coming to the White House to discuss all the information, maybe we can get some answers to that one as well.
This story is a fat man's sweater. You pull one string, and it unravels and unravels and unravels, and we're going to talk about it for the next 4 years. Obviously, you're right. It's not about the incidental collection, but the dissemination. It's one thing for the pharmacist to know what pills you're taking. It's another thing for him to talk about it at a convention of pharmacists in their underground secret lair beneath Walgreens. So that's the problem. But Nunes is somewhat faulted. He has to be faulted for going to the town square first before going to the sheriff, i.e. Sheriff Woody, Adam Schiff. They are dead ringers for each other. I've said it before. But if he'd gone to Adam Schiff maybe before and then gone to the town square, I think it would make a little more sense.
Yep.
But that's just me. And what do I know? Very little.
No, you know a lot.
No, I disagree.
I disagree with your disagreement. One, Team Trump, they've been surveilled, they've been unmasked, maybe illegally unmasked, they've been accused. Some people would say that they're victims in this.
You know, I don't even know where to start with you some days. But let me just say.
How about I love you?
Illegal?
You can start with surveilled,
How about
or you can go to unmasked.
Yeah, let's do that.
Accused.
Okay, nobody. Devin Nunes doesn't say it was illegal. It was legal surveillance. And if in the course of legal surveillance they incidentally collected some information or people who were Americans, typically that's supposed to be masked. But it's not a matter of legal or illegal.
No,
Well,
and actually,
it
one
could
of the,
be.
but one
Could
of
be.
them also, but one of the reports, and of course I've not seen the document, so I don't know.
Really?
Finds out that basically it was Russians talking amongst themselves
Correct.
about how they were trying to get influence into the Trump team. So they're talking about people that work for President Trump, and they want access to him. That's how their names are in there. It's not like those people were actually talking to the Russians, according to that one report, which I think I can understand why they would want Nunes to come and then go to try to protect them. But I also feel like if they found that information, why not take it to the White House General Counsel's office or to the press office and say, here, you take this, instead of trying to this like really Keystone Cop sort of way of getting Nunes to come and try to do their dirty work for them.
Well, let me
Okay.
just add one quick thing before Lisa jumps in, which is that I was surprised today when Paul Ryan was interviewed, and Paul Ryan says, when Nunes came to see me, Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, and so he's, in essence, Nunes' boss. So when Nunes comes to see me, he says, Nunes gives me the impression, oh, there were some whistleblowers. I got this information from whistleblowers. Well, today we find
In the
out...
intel community.
What is he talking?
No, he said that they worked for the intel community.
Well, he said they were whistleblowers. I didn't know that part, worked for the intel community, but he said that they were whistleblowers. And now we find out, basically, it was the White House blowing smoke intentionally to obstruct and obscure the legitimate investigation of this case. And to me, that's the headline.
I'm not sure that's the leap we're all willing to take, that the White House was trying to obstruct and obscure the information.
Where'd the information come from? We know it came from the White House.
We understand.
No, we know it came from the White House at this point.
We don't exactly know what the information is, Juan. We know that's who the sources are.
But
we don't know what
ultimately-
the actual information is yet.
Well,
I mean,
I'll come in a second.
ultimately, it's all concerning. I mean, it's concerning the fact that there's an FBI investigation. It's concerning the fact that there's the unmasking of names, that there's illegal leaks of classified information, especially when you have people like Gowdy in the Russian hearing, essentially trying to pin the blame at the Obama administration's feet. You also have that on the backdrop of the fact that President Obama changed the NSA rules for how information can be widely disseminated across the government. You also have the New York Times article about the Obama administration leaving breadcrumbs of intelligence information behind. That's all concerning. So all of this is concerning. But in regards, well, real quick, in regards to Chairman Nunes, where he needs to be concerned, and I do agree with Dana in the sense that there was so much that could have been done to avoid a lot of this backlash. And the problem he's going to face, if more Republicans like Representative Dent, like Walter Jones, that step forward and ask for him to step down, that's when he's going to start to face real heat.
I want to turn to the next topic, but before we go there, and it's something that dovetails to what you just said, Lisa, Evelyn Farkas. I really want to bring this up. I think this is extremely important. Evelyn Farkas worked in the State Department. She was Assistant Deputy Secretary to Russian Affairs. She told the Obama White House, after she left, she went back and told the Obama White House, she left in 2015, when President Trump was President-elect Trump, she told the Obama White House to put away some of the information that they were gathering, that the Obama White House was gathering on the Trump transition team. How does a mid-level, not a high level, but a mid-level Assistant Deputy Secretary of Russian Affairs, maybe Dana can answer this, how does she have access to this information, and why should she be advising the current White House, Obama White House, on this?
I don't know her at all, and I also know that I thought it was interesting, because I looked into that yesterday. She made those remarks about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, March 2nd.
So it's not new information.
March
The actually only new information that we have today is that we actually know that the information and the sources for Representative Nunes came from the White House. That's actually the new development today. Like all the other stuff, the unmasking of Flynn, are still the unanswered questions and still part of the investigation. I don't know how she
I
would know
will
that.
tell you, I'm sorry, Lisa, we want to get this next soundbite because it's on this topic. Hopefully, they're going to call some of these witnesses. Boy, guys, this would be my first witness to find out what the heck she was involved with, what her involvement was, and who else had access and who else was able to unmask. Anyway, all right, the Senate Intel Committee held its first public hearing today on Russia's meddling in our election. The FBI is also investigating whether the Trump campaign in any way worked with the Russians. Is the president himself under investigation? Speaker Ryan doesn't think so.
I do not believe that that's the case.
So if we don't know that,
Well,
do you think
I won't speak for the FBI, but I've never seen any suggestion or any evidence that that's the case. I don't believe that he is. So I don't think that he is under investigation. No one has suggested that he is, and not even in a vague way. I don't believe that he is.
Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, just spoke to one of the president's campaign advisors wrapped up in this controversy. Carter Page will be a witness at next week's Senate hearings. Here's a preview of what we can expect to hear.
did you work with the Russians to help the Trump campaign?
Absolutely not. I did nothing that could even be possibly viewed as helping them in any way.
Did you work with the Russians to hurt the Clinton campaign?
Absolutely not. In no way, shape, or form.
And there'll be more of that interview tonight on Special Report at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, Lisa, I cut you off before. Your thoughts on thoughts on this?
Well, I was going to say, ultimately, I think all of the conversations that we're having, which is what makes the FBI investigation the most important here, because hopefully that is one that is being done with politics aside, and also has the biggest consequences, obviously, that could lead to legal ramifications. So that's what is ultimately, I think, the most important thing here. But also, I think what was important today in the Senate hearing as well is the conversation of the fact that the Russian meddling and meddling in our election is something that has been long happening in both U.S. And European elections, which is what came up today. We also had Russia not that long ago hack into the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, this is important, but this is something that we have long been dealing with.
You know what struck me, too, was Nunes said he'd never heard of Carter Page.
Yep. Or
Holy smokes. He never heard of Roger Stone. He never heard of Carter Page. I mean, is that credible? I mean, talk about sacrificing not only your credibility, but the idea that you are a serious person in Washington. I mean, we sit here, Eric, we know who Carter Page is. We know Roger Stone. And the guy who's supposed to be in charge of the House probe says, oh, I never heard of him. That's just, I mean, it's beyond reasonable.
You know what I find interesting with these hearings is how the openness in which the Democrats and Republicans both are so willing to dissect the chilling nature of an adversary, which is something they refuse to do with Islamism. When I'm watching this and I see the interest in Russia, and I understand Russian meddling in our election, it's a bad thing. It's very bad. But it's an easy target to take because it doesn't have with it the baggage of bigotry, that prevents our politicians from saying, no, there's an existential threat that we should be having hearings about every day. It's called Islamism, but we won't do that. And then meanwhile, you see that the left, they're finally up in arms about Soviet but now Russian aggression and intrusion after 4 decades in which tens of millions of people suffered and died at the hands of communism, and here they are upset over spam bots.
No, but I don't think we need to wait. I think that both the things you say, I mean, I have tremendous fear for us in terms of the terrorists, but let's be clear. There was testimony today, we'll get into it in a moment, Eric said, in terms of the Senate, and one person said, it's very clear, the Russians are trying to encourage a sense of disbelief in democracy.
I've said it on this show 5 times.
They're trying to take apart the European Union. They're trying to take apart NATO. These are
for
really
decades.
Yeah,
but I also think
it's been intensified to the point that this very week, guess what? They're going after Paul Ryan. Well, wait a minute. They're just trying to foment dissent and discontinue and
we also do a pretty good job on our own of undermining trust in institutions.
Let's stay on these hearings for a second. So, Dana, on one hand, it can be said that Devin Nunes may not have, I don't know, unveiled some of the information or handled this investigation properly or the way you would like it or we would like it. But Adam Schiff also made some accusations that he had to walk back about having direct evidence versus circumstantial evidence.
I do think that there's just such a stark difference between how the House chairman, both the Senate and the Democrat, have handled this and how the senators yesterday, Warner and Burr, handled it. And I actually think I would end the House investigation. I would abandon it. And I would let the senators do the investigation because it seems like that's the serious one that is not tainted. I don't think anybody's going to believe anything that comes out of the House. So let the Senate handle it, let the FBI handle it, and move on from there.
With the Senate, the way you described it, I think we would all agree with you. Does that eliminate the need for an independent investigator, given what the senators
if you are at the White House and you think that is in your best interest, that you don't want a special prosecutor, then yeah, I think it could.
I think more and more Republicans are coming to the conclusion we do need a special prosecutor. And I might add, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney said that, this comes back to what we were just discussing, Greg, that he considers what the Russians did an act of war.
No, I'm not saying that what the Russians did was okay. I'm just saying that they're hardwired to take advantage of our vulnerabilities. When our guard goes down, the bear wakes up. So the best outcome for us is to understand that and accept it and move on to the bigger issues, which are terror. That is our existential threat. It's not Russia.
I wanted you to say that because we're going to talk more about this in the next block, so you got to come up with more notes.
Damn it!